continuing the line of the competitive deck practice, here we have me trying out Stealth Andy against a HB deck. HB seems to be gaining traction these days. I don't really like playing against HB, it's pretty annoying. But at least I have Switchblade to deal with it. Ichis and Architects and all. So I start with a decent opening hand. I gamble that the remote is not a Jackson Howard, so I try a Dirty Laundry on it. Turns out it's an Eve campaign. Good to know. This is quite important. I want to face check his early remote because I don't want him to sneak out an ABT or Vitruvius. And if it's a money asset, which is almost always certainly the case, at least I know whether I should trash it. An Adonis campaign, I would have trashed right there. Since it's an Eve, I'll let it go. And he smartly reses the Eve and protects it. This is very important. If he did not protect the Eve, I would certainly have contested it and trashed it. So because I wanted to trash the Eve, I made a very risky play here. I went for an account siphon. It paid off. He was not able to res the central ice because he only had 4 credits, so I got full siphon off, allowing me to trash Eve. And by right, I should be clearing tags here, but since he's on 0 credits, I'm just gonna completely exploit the fact that he cannot res any ice to get 2 cards, one of which is 2 agenda points worth of NAPD. So yes, that was a very huge turn for me, and yeah, in his words, a killer turn for him. He lost 4 credits, I gained 8 credits, trashed his money, scored an agenda. That is huge. Yeah, so that was a small mistake on his part that had very dire consequences. The ice that he placed on HQ, as you will see later, is a 5 res cost ice. He only had 4 credits. He couldn't defend against it. And alright, so since he's poor, I continue rampaging on his central servers. I draw into another account siphon, so I'm definitely looking to use that soon. Once again, he cannot res the ice on HQ, and I score a Vitruvius. So I try running again, thinking that his hand is loaded with agendas. It's another Eve campaign. I'll let that slide. And with my last click, I'll play the fairy. Play the fairy. No, I decided to play the cloak. I just needed to play 1 card, ditch the Desperado, so I'll be down to 5 hand size. 5 card hand size, yeah. I didn't want to play the fairy here because I didn't want to get program trashed by an Ichi on any of the centrals, but well, cloak would be trash anyway, so I'm not sure what I was thinking. The fairy would have, one of the important things about playing Stealth Andy is that you don't want to give up the fact that you are playing stealth. Then they can abuse you by installing end-run sentries like guard, which you cannot break until you have at least 2 stealth credits. So he tries to get Jackson Howard going, and having played against HB before, I'm always now very cautious about this. Always trash the Jackson Howard, because you do not want them to score an ABT and get uncontested free resing of ice. Always contest Jackson Howard. He gets an Adonis off in the remote. So at this point, I'm quite sure that the remote ice is some sort of cheap end run, maybe an Enigma, a Nyx Silver, whatever it is. It's not something that I can deal with, given my breaker suite right now. I cannot break code gates or barriers, and on the remote, our breach does not break barriers. Turns out I was right, it was a cheap end run in the form of Nyx Bronze. That was the reason why he used it to protect Eve campaign. Had I not siphoned him there, he would have been able to get the Eve off. I would not have been able to trash it. So instead I go for R&D because he spent money to res the next bronze, and I hit an efficiency committee out from the top. So that brings me up to 6-0. I'm in a very dominant spot right now. All I need to do is to find my code gate breaker and a couple more stealth cards. I'll be all set. The problem with landing an account siphon so early on, if it's even a problem at all, is that I'm very reluctant to clear tags at this point. And if I don't clear tags, I cannot play security testing. I cannot play Ghost Runner. That's a problem. So I'm forced to discard a card here. I might as well discard the Ghost Runner because I'm probably not going to install any resources this game. In the meantime, he has well recovered from the early siphon, being Engineering the Future. It's pretty hard to keep them poor. So I think he has run away with the money at this point. It's pretty impossible to contest both an Adonis and the Eve. What I could do is to contest just the Eve. That is very possible. But I could. And I think I'll be looking to do that soon. So I run his hand and I see the Adonis. I'm leaving it there because I'm probably not going to be able to afford to trash all his money assets at this point. And he has a Jackson out, which is problematic. Again, I need to trash the Jackson. Because if he has a Biotic ABT in hand, that's going to spell a lot of trouble for me. And I don't want him to draw and filter out agendas with Jackson Howard. So that's the second Jackson in the bin, very important to note. And as you see, it's a Lotus 3 on HQ, which explains why he wasn't able to defend against the Account Siphon. Alright, so now he prepares his scoring remote now that the Adonis has expired. In the meantime, I'm frantically digging for... I'm frantically digging for a Corroder because I know that I have no capability to contest his remotes at all. He tries to get an agenda out and I know I cannot contest it. That is almost certainly a barrier on the remote. I can contest sentries and code gates, but not barriers. So I draw 2 cards right here, hoping to find a Corroder or a special order. None of that came. So yeah, that's a problem. I spent 1 special order to get the Refractor out, which should have been used on the Corroder, I guess. Well, getting a Refractor was important because it means that now I have unparalleled access to HQ, except that I'm not drawing my Synthetic Works or Account Siphons right now. In the meantime, he chains a Vitruvius into another agenda in the remote. Again, I cannot contest that agenda. The best I can do is to play Account Siphon, which I just drew into. Neglecting to protect HQ has allowed me to gain a lot of traction with credits. I have 27 credits, which is ridiculous. But Stealth Andy doesn't need that many credits. Stealth credits really pay for themselves. So he can rest an Ichi, but that's no big deal. I use up my Fairy, and I'm prepared to install my Switchblade the next turn. He does not rest the innermost piece of ice. In the meantime, I do try to contest his Eve campaign, and yes, I was completely right. He does have barriers on the remote, and he's abusing the fact that I'm using Breach. Here he scores and triggers an accelerated beta test, and to my horror, he reses an Eli and a Mother Goddess. Dear, oh dear. One of them goes on HQ, which kind of seals me out of Legworks. I mean, it doesn't seal me out, but it makes Siphons unequitable. Legworks are still fine if I suspect that there are agendas in his hand. In the meantime, he gets what seems to be another agenda in that remote. Can't really deal with it. So here, I'm just going to pound away at R&D, which is basically my only entry point. With Switchblade out, I can easily access R&D. That Ichi is Swiss cheese to me. Slicing through, I find the winning agenda? No, I don't. I haven't drawn either of my R&D interfaces yet. There are still 18 cards in my deck. 2 of them are R&D interfaces. That is a problem. So here I speed up the video because it just consists of me hammering his centrals again and again. I found my legwork, so I try his hand. There's nothing in there. It's all upgrades and assets. He continues getting way out of hand with money. At this point, I know I cannot contest him. I just have to hope he's running all the small ice. Here I make a remark that he's forming his ice in the shape of a pyramid, and he installs what seems to be a Christian grid on R&D. Once again, I attempt to run R&D, seeing, oh, that's an Ash. Alright, I do beat the Trace because I'm rich, and he cannot afford to pump the Trace, but I still don't see an agenda. I trash the Ash. So as I continue pounding on the centrals, I still don't see the agenda that I need. And he's up to 4 points already, so that's pretty dangerous. At this point, I'm getting a bit low on money, so I decide to security test. He has not contested my security testing, even though I'm tagged. And he continues fortifying R&D. Now he gets rid of his Ichi, which is now obsolete because of Switchblade. And I need more money, so I take a break from herring centrals and get some money with security testing. So now I'm up to 18 credits. I couldn't afford really to run R&D. He has 3 eyes on there and a lot of money to rest them, so I was a little afraid. I decided to rack up the credits first. And here he goes for the game-winning move. He goes for a big move, trying to score an agenda in that remote. And I knew that he was taking advantage of the fact that I had no barrier breaker that breaks remotes. Well, that's the special order in my hand coming to play. The past few turns, as I've been hammering his centrals, I made sure to draw 1 or 2 cards every turn to see that Corroder. And now I get to play it. Surprise, surprise. I get through his server. And I'm pretty sure at the end of the tunnel, that's the agenda I'm looking for. The game-winning agenda. Sure enough, it is. Very dangerous though, it's an NAPD. I had 7 credits left. 4 credits, with 3 credits to spare, I've won the game. So this just shows you the power of Stealth Andy. I think it was quite frustrating for him to play against me. Firstly, because Account Siphon is still a beast. That was definitely not a nice Account Siphon for him, and it basically lost him the game. Secondly, Stealth Andy does feel like an inevitable battle, because once they get the Corroder, Refractor, and Switchblade out, if your deck is not tagged well, your ice is not tagged well against Stealth Andy, there's very little you can do to keep them out from hammering your centrals every single turn. Once Stealth Andy gets set up, there's very little that you can do to stop her unless you're running hard counters like Yanis, which is 8 strength, or lots of sentries, stacking sentries on top of sentries, or really expensive barriers like Curtain Wall. Otherwise, like my opponent here, Trying to take advantage of breach, not being able to hit remotes was the best play he could make, and he was nearly successful at it. But I eventually found my Crowder to sneak out the win. Thanks for watching, happy net running. See you around.